Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call the special meeting of Wednesday, February 19th, 2026, of the Zoning Commission to order. If we could stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All righty. I'd like to thank everybody for carving time out of their otherwise workday to do this. We have a big project on the docket, and we're continuing the public hearing of the petition to amend B-3C zone to accommodate PDD 24, also known as 333 Main Street South. And Jordan has been working in the intervening week and has come up with, I believe, text that he is going to recommend as satisfactory.
Yep, that is correct. So every note that we had worked on at the last meeting and made on the record has been amended. There were a couple items that were found to still be deficient just in the process. Those were cleaned up as well. And any notes that the commission makes this evening, if resolution is on the table, we have a metric within the resolution to address any edits that are made today that will be effective moving forward. So you've all received copies of that. If anyone has any questions on the text, let me know. We can go through it piecemeal. Otherwise, we can hear from the applicant, hear about any changes. The applicant has brought their traffic engineer with them today, so if any questions related to the traffic on Main Street South created by this development or from this development, absolutely ask those questions. But that's pretty much the meat and potatoes of it.
So I know you sent it out this morning. I haven't had a chance to go through the latest version. Is it possible for us to take the time right now and just go through based on what we discussed in our last meeting and make sure that all of those recommended edits
Sure.
are in there?
Of course,
So what I can do.
that's what we're here to do.
Perfect.
In addition to hearing from the public.
Yes, of course.
So notes from the last meeting, right on page 1, we wanted to integrate 12.1.4 and 12.1.5, which is included on the new version of the text that everyone's received today. On page number 2, we wanted to clean up some of the notations for the actual function of the project. This,
Before you get into the second page.
Please.
I just wanted to point out for the newer commissioners that there's a reference in a couple of the first paragraphs to the Plan of Conservation and Development. That's an important reference that you should keep in mind as sort of the very general backdrop to all of the zoning regulations. That it's not just thrown in there randomly, it's an important inclusion in the language here at the beginning. Okay, sorry to interrupt.
No, agreed. So the Plan of Conservation and Development, in its essence, is a 10-year plan for the town of Southbury. We're mandated by the state to create a plan of conservation and development that looks forward as far as housing, circulation, traffic patterns, economic development, open space, nature conservation. It runs the entire gambit. What that plan does is it acts as a guiding principle for both the town, its infrastructure, its zoning regulations, any operation therein kind of will guide development and make sure everything is in line. So the Planning Commission has reviewed it against that Plan of Conservation and Development, issued that positive referral that everyone received at the last meeting. There were some recommendations within that referral that I believe this commission has addressed adequately. So we can move right on to page 2. You'll see that the old note ended at F. So we really expanded on this to be more descriptive. It delineates the actual building features and building size. Again, this is a text for this site specifically, so we do have to be hyper-specific about exactly what we're writing, exactly how we're designing the development on paper. So we can head right to page 3 and then pass right over page 3 to page 4, because there were no notations for page 3.
Just before we go, and I'm sorry to
You're fine, absolutely.
jump
Please.
on every little item.
No worries.
With regard to L and M, do these, should these plans be noted as dated? Because they've had to revise and update these plans quickly in succession. There's some in January, there's some in early February, there's some for today. So, per plans, when you say per plan, do we need to say a date there, or is it
At
just
this
it's enough to
section-
just leave it like that?
At this section, I'll say it's unnecessary because of what comes next, in that it really specifies every single plan that's been submitted and the exact title, date, revision date. So it's well-defined, and what that does is when you're reviewing changes,
Exactly.
it's really helpful to notate what was initially approved and how those changes progress over time. So what you see in the next page is the narrative description. Nope, we are still moving on to page 4.
Actually, one more question on it.
Go right ahead.
We discussed, or we briefly discussed, like, the
Put your-
offsetting,
if you-
It's on.
it's on.
Sorry.
The offsetting or whatever from the road, like being 25 feet or 20 feet.
Mhm.
That was resolved in the updated
Text.
text.
That's what we're reading today.
Well, I know, it's, but not in this section, it's somewhere else?
Mhm.
Okay,
comes up.
I just want to make sure I didn't miss it.
Got it, no worries. So the note from the original one was that we needed the specific revised dates on the, essentially the drawing list here. So that's been heavily expanded. They've included the Civil 1 drawings as well, which are the engineering plan sets, which are critical to defining this site, and all of the revision dates have been accurately represented.
Thank you.
We're moving on to page 5. And I think we're moving right on to page 6. Page 6, item number 2, PDD regulation. We needed to change B3 to B3C, which the applicant has accommodated. And you will see under 2.1.4 is the list of all the accessory uses we talked about being provided at this site that we will want to define within the text, and the applicant has been adequate in defining those per the regulations. Move right on to page 6. If anyone has any questions, please jump in. Okay, so page 6 and the notes from the last meeting actually resulted in a bit of a change. So the way that we define height regulations in Southbury is pretty specific. The way we define height, in measuring the height of a building or part thereof or other structure to determine compliance with the maximum height provision, measurements shall be taken from the average level of the highest roof of the building or part thereof, and from the highest feature of a structure to ground elevation datum, consisting of an average elevation finished grade of the lot within 10 feet and around the perimeter of the building or such part thereof or structure. It goes on to even further elaborate what height is. So this is why we needed it to be defined not per regulations, but per the Southbury zoning regulations, so it immediately tied to that definition. As a result of that, the applicant has actually modified the maximum allowable height under this PDD from 40 to 45. I will note on the end of this regulation how that really affects the town and how it relates to existing structures and that 40-foot maximum that we've really held as pretty sacred, especially along Main Street South.
No, sorry, real quick, you're saying the applicant is changing the plans to be 45 feet?
Not the plans have always been this,
They're
but they
still-
were using the wrong definition of how to measure height. As a result of focusing on our definition specifically, that change needed to be made to the text to accurately represent the building.
Okay, but their building height hasn't changed in their proposal, it's still 39?
Not from their plans and their proposal, no.
Okay.
Just as it's related to the text defining
I
that
understand.
plan and that proposal,
Thanks, Jordan.
of course. Kevin, thank you.
Do I need to mention this thing, or you got it?
Kevin Bennett, Bennett Sullivan Associates, architects representing the owner. Yeah, that was basically just to give a little leeway on it. The front of the building basically meets the height of the regulation. The back of the building is only 2 stories. When you take the average around it, we're well within it, so. The
Okay,
45 was just in the event that anything were to
Yeah.
happen, it would be allowable.
sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Setbacks, change from 20 to 25 feet. Andrew, that was your question. So we are moving right on to page 7.
Jordan, in our conversation, we noted that the paragraph 1.1.3 actually relates to wetland delineation.
So Kevin, this will be a note that we'll actually have to amend because, and I'll define it clearly on the record. Section 2.4 setbacks, the sentence reads, "No building or other structure shall extend within 50 feet of the street line at 333 Main Street South as shown on the general plans. Site layout plan identified in paragraph 1.1.3, that references the wetlands plans. So we'll want it to reference the actual site layout plan. So we'll just have to notate 1.1 point whatever is that
Yeah.
accurate one. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
So we can move right on to page 7. Page 7, 2.2.5. There was a note that I had made to the applicant, not to compare this building. The old statement read, 333 Main Street South will provide for a building bulk and masking that is consistent with the previous development along 333 Main Street South, as well as the B3C zone. That's inaccurate. The B3C zone consists of Union Square, Union Savings Bank, and the 2-story mixed-use dwelling that's right next to the Union Savings Bank. So they removed that sentence. This will just kind of stand on its own. It doesn't need to be correlated to anything in that respect. We can move right on to page 8, which you'll see access and circulation. Nothing has changed as far as that goes from the original notes. However, they did notate some additional signage for traffic signs that will need to be included as a entry and exit only, because it's a two-way traffic system. Page 9. Any questions?
And 2.6.2, the last sentence I was puzzling over. Looked like it might have been left over, or was that intended?
Rod, put your mic on and then by all means.
Sorry.
No, absolutely, no problem.
2.6.2, access and circulation, paragraph A, last sentence. It looks incomplete, and I was puzzling over it, whether it was left over from an edit, or whether it was part of the intent of.
So Rod's referring to the sentence, these types of details. This is referring to the MUTCD traffic sign specifications for the sign shape and catalog numbers for the entry and exit signage. The sentence reads, "These type of details such as sign shape and catalog numbers are typically shown in such detail."
No.
Different sentence?
Review engineering drawings by Civil One Consulting Engineers for traffic design and construction details.
Paragraph A, got it.
Last sentence.
Review engineering drawings by Civil One Consulting Engineers for the traffic design and construction details. Okay, so that sentence begins, "There shall be one access, ingress, egress, driveway from Main Street South as shown on the plan identified in paragraph 1.1 for vehicular access and management. The driveway shall not exceed 24 feet in width excessive of the curb corner radii at the street line or such lesser width as will be sufficient to accommodate the traffic to be generated. Unless a greater width is required by town ordinance or by state of Connecticut, review engineering drawings by Civil One Consulting Engineers for the traffic design and construction details." My understanding of that is you can review the traffic design to get a better understanding of this access and circulation plan as it's described on this text. If you'd want the applicant to clear up that for you, we can absolutely ask them. Yeah?
Okay, I'd like to hear why it's there. I
Please.
just don't understand it.
Kevin or Megan, if either of you want to address that?
Megan Miller, Civil One. This area came about with comments that were provided by a member of the Wetlands Commission who asked for site signage for the entryway and the exitway of the site. that would typically be shown on a construction level drawing. These are standard Connecticut DOT traffic signs that are applicable for this site, especially since they are located within the right-of-way. It was instructed that that type of language needs to be included in this resolution, or this document, to very clearly indicate what type and size of a traffic sign is on this site.
You okay with that, Rob? Yeah. Okay. We are on to the next page, 2.6.3. The note from the last meeting was to include that the spaces held in reserve are separate from the overall parking design, at 15 spaces to be held in reserve if the zoning commission determines that there's a need to transfer the 15 spaces from
This is
reserve.
sub-E. This is sub-E you're talking about?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. But yeah, it just further defines that, which is the request of the commission, so they've satisfied that requirement.
Just to clarify for myself, I know we talked about it, but the modification of detailed plans is not a hearing.
No, it is not.
Okay.
Nope. And if it's minor enough in nature, the zoning commission can approve. One, they have to deem it minor enough in nature, and once they do that, it is not required to be referred to the planning commission.
Okay.
All right, we're on to page 11. You'll see sanitation, as well as landscaping. So I believe the applicant has included features, including some stone walls for the landscaping area in the front, as well as language to address compliance of the approved landscaping plan if any of it is found to be non-compliant. Move right on to signs. This was well-defined at this point. We have signs, we have lighting, we have parking EV signs. The comment for signage was, if any EV signage was necessary, it would need to be included within the text, which the applicant has met that requirement. We move on to maps and plans, and on to the next page, number 13. Number 13 was a simple note regarding the side yard setback, which was again corrected from the 20 to 25, as well as you'll see the maximum building height. This is kind of related to that original comment by Kevin Bennett regarding the existing height of the building and how it's measured per our regulations. So what you see is the actual proposed building height is 39 feet to mean height of gable roofs, but the actual proposed building height is 42.5 feet to the height of the gable roofs. So it's really just 2 feet 6 inches, and it's for that architectural feature that the commission has kind of sought after with respect to this application. And that is it,
Thanks, Jordan.
of course.
Thank you, Jordan. So, are there other questions sitting here? So this is the public hearing. I don't know if there are any members of the public who wish to inquire or to say anything about the project. That's what we're here for.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Is it, I've given some thought to, and maybe this is addressed somewhere else in the regulations, I'm not sure, being new to the board, obviously. Is there anything in the regulations that speaks to occupancy restrictions?
So they define the exact load of the building and the number of bedrooms and units, but you
But
can't,
not number of people?
that would be a
can-
building code issue and a fire code issue. That wouldn't be something you could regulate through the zoning regulations. There's other avenues with which the municipality would ensure that a correct occupancy load was accommodated
Okay,
for the
so
site.
that's not our call to make
Nope.
then?
That'll be from the fire marshal.
Okay, fair enough.
Chance to make a point or to the points, did you want to address?
I
it?
just was going, Kevin Bennett, they're basically 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. You more than likely will not have more than 4 people in a 2 bedroom, 2 people in a 1 bedroom. But the town also regulates that no more than 6 unrelated people can live in any dwelling in town. So it's not usually an issue, and the building owner would also have an issue with that because the leases state who's going to live in the house.
Right. I just know it's been an issue elsewhere, you know, when building units like this, you have large families kind of pile in sometimes, and I'm just concerned that that could potentially happen. So just wanted to guard against that if we could, but clearly it's not our call, so, you know.
But it's also part of the application. Somebody comes in with 8 people going to live in 1 bedroom, it don't happen.
Understood.
So it just as sort of a side note to your inquiry, Frank, is that the other zoning regulations are sort of cut out, and this zone, PED 24, is put in place of it. So whatever regulations we have the ability to put are in here. We're not gonna be able to import other stuff into there, so, as far as zoning goes. So it'd have to be a fire marshal, a building regulation, a health code, something like that.
I get it.
Would come into this, but our zoning, we're essentially creating a mini thing that's all on its own.
Right.
So that's why we're trying to spend so much time and attention with the accessory uses and, you know, nailing down what appear to be pretty fine points, because it's a new zone. It's a new zone. All right, PDD 24.
Well, that's the text. If this commission is comfortable with the language, what could happen today is moving forward with the general plans. You have a resolution that's been drafted. If everyone needs a copy, I have them ready. But what you could effectively do is approve this regulation text as well as the changing of the B3C zone to the new PDD 24 zone, while the commission continues to move forward and address item number 2 on the agenda, which is the application for detailed plans, which operates as the physical site plan for that development. So you're doing them one at a time. They're 2 separate applications, but they function for the same lot, for the same purpose. But any other questions I can answer, I'd be happy to.
You've had 9 or 10 days since our last regular meeting, no?
Are we Tuesdays?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You feel like you've had sufficient time to do what you need to do?
Yeah.
With regard to this?
Yeah,
This resolution?
They've done a good job with the regulations.
All right.
The resolution is sound. They've made a lot of updates today. There was a whirlwind of emails that everyone received today.
I'd imagine.
The applicant, the most recent thing is the concept plan that the applicant provided. That's something that the commission hasn't seen from the perspective that came in. That's not necessarily something that is intrinsically tied to this text. That's still something that the commission can work to modify or improve, or essentially just collaborate with the applicant under the detailed plans portion of this process.
All right, so
Well-
if there's no,
Clarify.
Sure.
Like, I know we got the email from the response from the traffic and everything like that. We're all happy with the end result of it, I guess.
So the traffic engineer's here today to address any questions. What you were all provided was an email correspondence by the traffic engineer over at NBCOG. Essentially, at the last meeting, what you had requested of the applicant is that they, instead of conducting a whole new traffic study, which I agree is a kind of effort and futility at this point, the commission requested that the applicant appear back before their traffic engineer and solicit some potential solutions to the level of service D that was coming out of the site. That was the chief concern of the commission. Traffic engineer's here if any questions need to be made, but the conversation that was had with NBCOG was essentially just that. Are there any improvements? Are there any recommendations? What can you provide the commission to kind of support their goal of improving traffic on Main Street South while still accommodating this site? They really didn't see, they reviewed the traffic analysis by Kimley Horn. They didn't see any issues with the traffic analysis. They essentially agreed with the assertions there. And what NVCOG had responded with was that lot SIP grants, which are public improvement grants, could be used to accommodate the synchronization, among other things, that can be approved along Main Street South. So there are avenues for both the commission, the town, engineers, municipality, Board of Selectmen, to work to address this, which is something that I feel really strongly about, because we all experience the pain points on Main Street South, especially during those peak hours. But that's not to say that working together can't result in a overall improvement on top of accommodating a new style of development on Main Street South, which, in my opinion, will have a large and positive benefit to the community.
Thank you, Jordan. So to that end, we have traffic engineer. Was there any inquiry, and do you have a time to? Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board, particularly for your thoughtful attention to this matter. I was responsible for preparing the traffic study. We reviewed the response from NVCOG. I just did a site visit before I got here, which is almost the rush hour. And I see how traffic progresses up and down on South Main Street. I did make a left turn out of the bank. It was just one left turn. The benefit of this site actually is that it's not so far from Peter Road. So every time Peter Road stops, or every time South Main Street stops to let Peter Road go, you get about a 5-second gap when northbound traffic is not coming, and you gotta hope that southbound traffic is not coming at that time. I was fortunate and I made a left turn. It took me about 10 seconds. And then when Peter Road and Oldfield Point Road stop, there's another 5-second gap. So twice a cycle, you get a little bit of gap in northbound traffic, which helps. This project is not a big project, obviously. Residential is not a big generator. People hear 40 apartments and they think, oh my God, everybody has 2 cars, it's 80 cars an hour. It's really not that. First of all, not every apartment is fully occupied. If there are families, the kids don't drive. And some people work at home, some people leave early, some people leave late, some people are sick. So it's really not a big traffic generator. To the extent that this commission can, and it has been a town practice in the past, requiring cross-access easements between parcels is a positive thing, because if I go to a store on this site and I drive because I live somewhere out of town, and then I want to go to a store on the next side or the bank on the next side, I don't have to go back out on the main street and then go back in, so I could just cut right across, or if that connection is made to the bank on the other side. That has been a practice in the past, and that's a mitigation measure. Overall, the level of service D that we indicated is not great. We'd all like to see better, but both the Highway Capacity Manual and NCOG indicate that it's kind of typical for peak hour conditions. We'd rather with something better, but it is what it is. So if you have any questions specific to, how we might make it better, I think, future looking, if you have the cross-access easements and the fact that you've got a mixed-use development, you're sort of halfway there. I don't think there's much else that can be done for a small project like this, but I'm here to brainstorm with you and answer any questions you may have.
Well, thank you for that, and appreciate your insight. I think we're, in general, as a commission, we're a little concerned that if we get, 3 or 4 small projects down the road, now we might end up with, okay, we're really stuck. Now how are we going to fix this? Because we can't make the road wider.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a finite amount of stuff, and we just want to proceed rationally and not put all the burden on that last person in.
Understood.
That last guy's going to get stuck. So that's kind of what I was hoping to understand a little better. If there was, if you just have to, as other people have said, it is what it is, and you just have to see how it goes, kind of thing. All right, I understand that. But from your experience, if there's something we can do at the outset to, maybe soften that.
Well, so 2 things to consider. First of all, the NVCOG communication indicated that there potentially is a project that will come along and revamp these signals, improve their operation. Potentially synchronization is a part of that, which is really a corridor thing. It helps you move along the corridor better. It's kind of hard to get the timing right for every single unsignalized intersection. This intersection may not be as important as maybe the one next to it. It's hard to tell at this stage. But number one is there's a potential there for that. The other thing to remember, in my opinion, is that if you look at the broad scale of traffic and the nature of retail operations, traffic volumes have gone up and down. But if you compare it to 2008, they're really not that much more now than they were back then when people actually went to retail stores more. And looking forward with the continued growth of AI, retail deliveries by Amazon and stuff like that, and if you compare that 20-year window, right, it's likely that they're not going to increase all that much. There'll be periodic ups and downs. We'll have some other thing that's going to send us into a recession, and every recession, traffic goes down, and then it claws its way back out of the gutter. So the bottom line is, this is not a big project. Yes, you'll have other projects. They'll occur over the course of time. Hopefully, you'll be fortunate enough. Sooner or later, you're going to get the signals upgraded anyway, because everything has to be fixed eventually. And I think you're in a good spot.
Thank you for your time and comments, sir.
Thank you.
All right. So we have a resolution. And
Oh, yeah, you gotta close the public hearing first, right?
well, yes, we're going to act on the resolution and close the public hearing and act on the resolution.
So before you close, why don't you just elicit or ask if there's any other comments, just to give anyone. One final. We'll give everyone one final opportunity to make comments. And then if no other comments and no other information is needed, because what the commission should understand for some of the newer members, once you're in a public hearing, once we're in a public hearing, that's your opportunity to receive new information. So everyone receiving emails about new renderings and new concepts and everything like that, that's all fine because we're under the public hearing, and this is the moment that the commission's opening up that discussion for those items. Once the public hearing's closed, no further comment can really be received. What ends up being a discussion with the public and the applicant turns inward and becomes a tabletop discussion between the commissioners. So it's important that everyone has gotten all their questions answered and addressed prior to the closing of the public hearing.
So that being said, are there any further questions or inquiry or comments from the public? Yes, Mr.
Kevin
Beck.
Bennett again. Just to make sure, this is just for the regulation public hearing that's closed, not for the detailed plans or...
Correct. Thank you. Just for the first item, the petition to amend, not the application of the detailed plans. So, public hearing being closed.
You make a motion for that.
Okay,
I move we close the public hearing.
thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Can we have a vote on that? Everybody's aye?
Yeah.
All right. Public hearing's closed. This is a pretty long resolution. Got to read this thing into the record?
I'd be happy to.
It's okay. I mean, you can split it if you want.
No, all good. Southbury Zoning Commission, Town of Southbury, Connecticut, resolution for general plans, PDD 24-333 Main Street South, map block and lot 2956 and 2. This is February 19th, 2026. Whereas on January 14th, 2026, the Zoning Commission received a petition request from Bennett Sullivan Associates on behalf of the owner petitioner Patrick Downand for development of a 2.5-acre parcel of land located at 333 Main Street South under Section 12 Plan Development of the Southbury zoning regulations. Whereas the Zoning Commission held a duly noticed public hearings on February 11, 2026 and closed on February 19, 2026. Whereas the Zoning Commission makes the following findings with regard to this petition request. 1, the request involves development of the parcel for a mixed-use commercial building, including the following. A mixed-use development with commercial retail on the first floor and multifamily residential dwellings on the second and third floors. B, permitted uses include those which are applicable in the B3C zone. C, 34 residential units totaling 52 bedrooms, with 16 units are to be one bedroom and 18 units are to be two bedrooms. D, 93 parking spaces are provided, with 15 spaces to be held in reserve in the event the parking is found to not be adequate to manage the vehicles at the property. E, open-air structure with 24 parking spaces beneath the apartment areas. F, a front two-way sidewalk entrance is to be installed pending Board of Selectmen approval in order to integrate the property with the streetscape. G, accessory uses include exterior rooftop terrace of 1,790 square feet, a fitness center of 772 square feet, electric vehicle charging stations, and storage areas in garages for residents. 2, the PDD consists of two primary plan sets. Bennett Sullivan Associates site plan documents consist of a 10-page document titled 333 Main Street South, Southbury Zoning Commission, PDD 24, general and detailed plans. Civil 1 submitted engineering plans that consist of 15-page document titled 333 Main Street South, permitting set, not for construction, proposed multifamily development, Southbury, Connecticut, map 29, block 56, lot 2, which constitutes the PDD regulation and contains the following plans. Goes 1.1.6 general plans under the title Concept Architectural Plans and Drawings, created by Bennett Sullivan Associates, revised on February 19, 2026. 1.1.7 general plans, site plan prepared by Bennett Sullivan Associates Architects Planners, dated January 7, 2026, revised on January 31st, 2026, drawing S100. 1.1.7A, general plans titled Site Plan prepared by Bennett Sullivan Associates Architects and Planners, dated January 7, 2026, revised on January 31st, 2026, drawing SP100. 1.1.7B, general plans, site details prepared by Bennett Sullivan Associates Architects and Planners, dated January 7, 2026, drawing SP101. 1.1.8, general plans titled Lower Level and Parking, prepared by Bennett Sullivan Associates and Architects and Planners, dated January 7, 2026, revised on January 31st, 2026, drawing A100. 1.1.9, general plans, main level apartments, prepared by Bennett Sullivan Associates, dated January 7, 2026, revised January 31st, 2026, drawing A100. General plans under 1.110, titled Upper Level Apartments, prepared by Bennett Sullivan Associates, dated January 7, 2026, revised January 31st, 2026, drawing A102. 1.1.11, general plans titled Roof Plan, prepared by Bennett Sullivan Associates, dated January 7, 2026, revised on January 31st, 2026, drawing A103. 1.1.12, general plans titled Elevation, prepared by Bennett Sullivan Associates, dated January 7, 2026, revised January 31st, 2026, drawing A200. 1.1.13, general plans titled Longitudinal Section, prepared by Bennett Sullivan Associates, dated January 7, 2026, revised January 31st, 2026, drawing A300. The Civil 1 plan set constitutes 1.1.14, general plans titled Cover Sheet, prepared by Civil 1, dated May 29, 2025, revised February 17, 2026. 1.1.15, general plans, zoning location survey, prepared by All Seasons Land Surveying, dated July 10th, 2024. 1.1.16, general plans, titled Site Plan, prepared by Civil 1, dated May 29th, 2025, revised on February 17th, 2026, drawing C1.1. For the sake of the rest of these, I am not going to read the dates, except for 1.1.28, because they are all May 29th, revised February 27th. So we have 1.1.17, general plans, grading plan, drawing C 2.1, 1.1.18, general plans, erosion control plans, drawing C 3.1, 1.1.19, general plans, septic system design, drawing C 4.1, 1.1.20, general plans, septic system notes and details, drawing C 4.2, 1.1.21, general plans, titled driveway and drainage profiles, drawing C 5.1, 1.1.22, general plans, titled drawing profiles, drawing C 5.2, 1.1.23, general plans, titled Landscaping Plan, drawing LA 1.1. 1.1.24, general plans, titled Lighting Plan, drawing L 1.1. 1.1.25, general plans, titled Drawing, Lighting Details and Notes, drawing L 1.2. 1.1.26, general plans, titled Details, drawing C 6.1. 1.1.27, general plans, titled Details, drawing C 6.2. And then 1.1.28, general plans, same date as the rest, titled Erosion Control Narrative and Project Notes, drawing C 6.3. Item number 3, the applicant has cited sections 12.3, 12.4, 12.5, and 12.6. That is an error. The second 12.3 should be reading 12.4.
Yes.
as the relevant PDD narrative sections as rationale for its submission to the zoning commission, with sections 12.1.1 serving as the preamble. Item 4, the zoning commission has determined that the application is deemed complete and informative information provided sufficient to evaluate and act upon the petition request. Item 5, as required by section 12.5 and section 8-3A of the Connecticut General Statutes, the commission referred the general plans to the planning commission for their consideration and comment. Specifically, the planning commission must make finding that the proposed planned development district is consistent with the adoptive conservation plan of development for the town, section 15.5.1 of the zoning regulations. The planning commission has found under item 6, the general plans to be consistent with the plan of conservation and development, and voted to recommend approval of the PDD with recommendations in a report dated February 10th, 2026. The applicant submitted a traffic study titled Traffic Analysis for 333 Main Street South, prepared by Kimley Horn, dated May 5th, 2025. 8, the applicant submitted a stormwater report titled Stormwater Management Report, prepared by Civil One, dated January 12th, 2026. 9, the zoning commission makes finding that the proposed planned development district meet the applicable proposed purposes and criteria of paragraph 12, 12.1.3, 12.1.4, and 12.1.5, and special standards of paragraph 12.6, and that the district is in accordance with the comprehensive plan of zoning for the town and consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan of development for the town of Southbury, Connecticut. 10, adoption of the PDD. The planned development district may be adopted by the zoning commission with modifications deemed necessary by the commission to maintain the purposes of these regulations. Notice of adoption shall be given in the same manner as required for amendment of these regulations. Any adopted PDD shall be shown in the zoning map with its own PDD number and with a reference to the town records where the district provisions may be seen. Whereas the application was submitted by Bennett Sullivan Associates on behalf of petitioner Patrick Downen, seeking approval of the general plans to amend zone map and zoning regulations for the property at 333 Main Street South. Whereas the map amendment would modify the existing zone boundary, these are all wrong. Oh, those 3 whereases should be removed. It should move from item 10 right into now therefore be it resolved.
You mean this wasn't the first launch of this resolution?
Now therefore be it resolved by the Southbury Zoning Commission that the Planned Development District is approved and assigned the number 24, PDD 24, with the following requirements. The final text of the PDD shall be amended as approved and dated to include all of the revisions. 2, the detailed plans as required by section 12.5.2 of the zoning regulations, including recommendations contained in the Planning Commission referral. 3, the zoning regulations and the zoning map as amended by adoptions of said PDD 24 shall become effective on March 20th, 2026, adopted at a special meeting by the Zoning Commission held on February 19, 2026. Mark Lee, Chairman.
Good job, Jordan.
Seems unnecessary.
You may think so, but that was a long resolution. Thank you very much. I think you picked up the typos as you went, so I don't know that there's much else to comment on.
Yep.
So, having heard the resolution, do I hear a motion to approve it?
I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution with the whereas is removed and the typos repaired.
Second that.
All right, and all in favor? Aye. So it's, any against? All right, so that's unanimous. All right, well,
So you still have on
Yep.
the agenda the detailed plans, which you will want to
Yeah.
address.
so we have the public hearing open on the application for the detailed plans for the same project. I know there are some people here who wish to address it, I believe. My intention is to recommend we leave that hearing open, and we take it up at our next regular meeting, and we'll see how far we get digesting that. So if there's anyone who wishes to address that, the detailed plans, you could do that. Or I intend to leave the public hearing open, so you don't have to rush to it if you don't wish.
Kevin Bennett, Bennett Sullivan. We have the traffic engineer, the civil engineer, and the architects to address the few issues that you had. I'd like to ask if Civil 1 could go first. Megan needs to be at another meeting in Warren and has to leave by 5:30. So if you could just ask the first questions about civil.
Thank you.
Any,
So, thank you for joining us this afternoon, Megan.
there we go. The civil plans have just been revised with very minor changes, predominantly just based on some comments that were provided by a commission member of the Wetlands Commission. There was a letter that was submitted dated February 17th of 2026 addressing those comments. There were additional comments that were received yesterday morning that we did not have time to address in the plans and a letter. However, we discussed them at Wetlands yesterday where we received approval. They were predominantly about the maintenance of stormwater and some clarifying questions. If you have any questions to those items, please let me know and I can address them.
Thank you. The traffic engineer mentioned cross-access easements. Is that something that there's room for in these plans, or is that something that does appear?
They're not shown on the plans. There's one connection to the property on the south. That would be an access to the adjacent commercial development. That would require an easement to do that.
Which does not exist at this point.
Correct.
The other, go ahead, yes,
If I could address that.
of course.
It's just been standard procedure for like the last 40 years that any time you have a site plan and an adjacent lot, you try to give an access point. What usually happens is in the future, if Union Square wants to do anything, the commission just asks them to connect to the connector that we've provided. If they so choose to, without needing an application approval, we can do it at this time. So it's just been standard procedure all up and down Main Street for a number of years.
Thank you. So, the other issue that was sort of kicking around was the extension of the facade.
That's an
And-
architect. Do
Okay.
you have any civil questions that preside
I
through
don't-
the site development?
We have an engineer over there, I don't know if he's chewing on it or not, but
Software. Electrical, you know, so, we have the transformer laid out there.
so you don't have anything.
So, Mark, if I may, Deandra Nevin, Land Use Enforcement Officer. So, last night it was the Inlands and Wetlands meeting. They did review it from their purview, and they approved it under such, but there were two items. One, which was the drainage report that, the commission has been brought aware of, and Megan has noted on that. And then the second one was creating these access cleanouts. I believe, Megan, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was for the buildup of trash and sediment in the hydraulic system there.
Yeah, so there's a hydrodynamic separator, so that is a pretreatment of stormwater that then before stormwater gets into our underground stormwater systems. It cleans the water of sediment, oils, particles. There is a access manhole for that. What I did refer to were we call typically inspection ports. On our plans, we have inspection ports that are on the concrete galleys, that concrete galley detail. It's a way for ease of maintenance into the chambers, where if there were any issues of further sediment and buildup, it would easily be able to open that up. A qualified professional will be able to view it, blast out, clean any sediment that they might need to do. As one of the comments from the Wetland Commission was ease of maintenance, and we would have absolutely no problem with, adding inspection ports on the Coltech units, because they are on the concrete, we just have them on the chambers.
So not a major modification.
Correct.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. You guys have, from what it seems like, plenty of parking and stuff like that. I am noticing that almost every parking row, I guess, is, slightly angled from the actual road and stuff like that, which has and it might just be like an artifact of the drawing or whatever, so not actual true dimensions that I can see. But you have a couple random parking spaces that look like they're either slightly smaller or angled off, I guess. So the bottom left one, wherever, right here, might be slightly smaller. Yeah. So you see this guy right here, or that one right there. Are they still standard size?
It's still standard, it's in the drawing.
Yeah.
When you have different lines, it's a different color, so they print thicker, so they might look from a visual standpoint, but they are the minimum
Okay.
required.
Thank you.
Yep. Are there any other questions regarding
Any
this?
other questions for the
drawings?
engineer? Any specific to drainage, stormwater? No? Thank you, Megan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck at your next meeting.
Thank you.
Next, I'll ask John to come up and see if you have any further questions on traffic. If not, we can go into the presentation of the exteriors.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. So with regard to the accessing the other parking lot, it's not something that, how shall I say, you would think would be a formal measure to mitigate the traffic. It's just something that people would do naturally.
Well, in my experience, the way it works is this application is before you, and you, in your wisdom, deem it appropriate or not appropriate to require them to provide a cross-access easement to one side or the other or both, and that would be executed whenever it would be appropriate. It might not be appropriate now because the neighboring properties are not interested, but if they came back and they were before you for something else, and you still thought it was a good idea then, you would tell them, well, your neighbor has a cross-access easement, we want you to execute it. And so that's how it would happen, but you would have, this approval would have that condition in there that it would be executed at the appropriate time. And on the plan, there's areas on either side that it could connect to the adjacent properties, but you can word the language to say that it would be there or another suitably located area as approved by the planning board or planning commission. So that when they came back and if the owner said, well, I'd rather you do it here, and the other owner said it's okay here, and you guys said, well, that works too, you could move it. So it would appear in your resolution as a formal measure. It would be executed over time. Presumably somebody will come back in and do something with those things. And you're taking the long look on the horizon for the corridor anyway, so that's kind of part of the game plan.
Thank you.
Any other traffic questions for anyone?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Kevin Bennett, the commission asked about, the other elevations of the building. We had submitted a nice rendering for the front of it, but, there were line drawings basically on the other 4 elevations, submissions that we'd made in the past. What we did is basically just render the other views of the building to give you a better idea in 3D what everything looks like more realistically. We've passed out a package to you with 4 different views of the building. This is the one that we presented originally. Sorry about that, but this was the original view that you've been shown. We showed a view from this side, which is coming south on Main Street. And it shows the side going up towards 325 Main Street, Ives Bank. This is more of a little higher view looking from basically over top of Ion Bank into the courtyard and the back of the building. This is more of a view into the courtyard to show you what the interior looks like. And this is a view from the back, looking back towards Ives Bank and Ion Bank over here. Any questions?
Well, thank you, Mr. Bennett. I think the question was that we seem to have resolved the traffic issue. There's no new study needed. But I think there's some concern by some members on the commission about the facade being wrapped around, and your drawings indicate that that's not the intention. So I wonder if you could address that.
Pardon? Well, I guess the question is, other than, the 2 gables in the front, what were you anticipating that we would do with it? Because basically, they're the same elevations with the same materials. We added a lot more brick to it.
My recollection of the concern was that the facade be better integrated and more, how shall I say, consistent if it were to be wrapped completely as opposed to just the 2 facing the street. So I put it to you. We want to move the project along. We think this is a terrific project. We just want to get it right.
I'm confused what you're asking.
So the last meeting, we discussed, and there was discussion about wrapping the top of the facade around the entire project. Mr. Hine felt that maybe it wasn't necessary to do the whole. His comment was that, the left side isn't exactly.
Now that I see it like this, I kind of like what I'm seeing compared to bricking the whole thing. It offers contrast. I think if looking at brick buildings 10 or 15 years down the road, they kind of start to look like old brick. I think I really like the way that this looks.
Well, help me understand. One, were there any changes made to the most recent drawings we're looking at compared to the last time? Because it still looks the same to me.
You have a rendering.
Yeah, yep. I have the rendering that we have right now, right?
No, that's what's updated is you now have a visual component
Okay.
that you're able to see. You have a rendering that shows you what it's gonna look like.
So I'm kind of in agreement with Jay here that it looks like it's the same face on the side as it is on the front. So from my perspective, looking at it, I don't see anything that would lead me to believe.
The only key differences are the front is a primarily brick with some white clapboard face. Once you get to the sides, you lose the primary brick and you get a green clapboard face. And that's pretty much consistent everywhere else other than the front face. What the commission worked hard at the beginning was what you see everywhere else minus the brick was what was proposed on the front, and that was deemed to be not an architectural design that was really going to be the best focus for this type of development. What the commission really set out to do at the beginning of this is achieve the greatest potential development for this new style of use that will likely be coming to Main Street South in the future. So if the commission likes the design, fantastic. If they don't feel it meets the integration or the improvements that were conducted on the front facade, then you would be asking that it be included elsewhere on the project. But it would be up to the commission. Just recognize that we are still trying to create the best avenue for not just this development, but every subsequent development that's going to be using metrics of the new Section 12 of the PDD to modify sites that are less than 5 acres. This will be the first time that we had a development that had a pretty specific design on the front, and then it changed elsewhere on the property.
I kind of disagree with that, but that's my opinion.
Okay.
I mean, if you're asking for a big brick box, if that's what is, am I not interpreting? Oh, sorry. Yeah, if you're looking for a big brick box like our old town hall, like our firehouse and everything, then yeah, we'll stay consistent with a street full of big brick boxes going up and down the street. This is not that. This is a far cry from that. And there's no other ways of looking at it compared to what is existing now.
It's also a residential component, mostly.
But I'm talking, just visually, you know, and I don't know anybody else, but I'm the artist on the board, so, you know.
Right, yeah, and Marty, you were the one that spoke during those initial concept meetings about wanting to have more historic visual components on Main Street, and you were the one that supported the fact that we don't have a cohesive design on Main Street. So what we're doing today, and what this applicant is looking to do on Main Street, is really devise something new that we're gonna be striving to replicate moving forward.
Right.
No, a big brick box is not what we're looking for. I don't think that's what they're proposing, and I don't think that's the front facade
Right.
that was achieved.
No, that's not what I'm saying. It's not what's going on here at all. It is not a big brick box, and it does have a lot of contrast.
And character.
And frankly, it's the best piece of architecture right now, that's the best piece of architecture we have on Main Street. Okay?
Yeah. And I kind of disagree, because the comments I've heard over the past 20 or 30 years from people that come to Southbury is they like it because there is such a consistency of development on Main Street. There's a harmony between the streetscape, the buildings, the clapboards, the sort of commercial colonial look that we've created in all the other projects. So, I mean, this is very much in keeping with what we're doing, but it's a residential element in a commercial zone.
And for you guys, it's really different because there's no cupolas.
There's
involved
no
there.
cupolas.
No cupola, not one.
Don't have anything against cupolas, do they?
I'm sorry?
Don't have anything against cupolas.
You want them?
Not a town of cupolas.
We could put a couple on there if you really need them.
Change that, Cupola Village, huh? Welcome in. No, I'm just kidding.
Jordan, when we see projects like this outside of Southbury, does this follow a similar, like, architectural layout?
No, I'd say if you looked at what the commission and what the concept plans really focused on early on was the fact that the standard type of kind of clapboard and some raised features and variety of colors and textures, that's really all that's sought out for even an apartment style dwelling. What you guys were provided were a lot of great examples, some examples that missed. Some of them are taken right off of Main Street in Danbury from some of the high-rise apartment buildings that really don't meet the aesthetic and the platform that Southbury was looking for. That's why the front facade changed to what it is today.
Okay, then the other question I have is if this is going to set precedent, if we were to ask the architect to change the entire set of plans so that all sides were similar, would that create any sort of burden or unfavorability in developing in Southbury?
In what regard?
Cost, collaboration?
Well, what the applicant has is a project in front of you. What the commission's tasked with doing is making sure it is the best project for Southbury, not necessarily working out the market economics of the project. If that's what's deemed necessary by the commission, then that becomes a condition of approval. If it's not, then the commission moves forward with any design features that you guys are comfortable with.
But I think the commission should be able to consider the cost and like what is reasonable and what we're asking people to do. Like, we don't
Right.
want to double the cost of a project because we want to change the, I personally, okay, maybe not, we don't want to double the cost of a project to change the side facade, but like, if it's a reasonable, like, I guess the question is, how much of a significant change would it be in the cost of the project to do that? Like, percentage-wise?
This has come a long way from what the original submission was, cost-wise. We've had a number of conversations with the owner, who's getting a little uncomfortable, but, is willing to. I've worked with him for 15 years, so he's willing to allow us to go a little bit further, but I'm not quite sure, and I don't agree that, the front look of this should go all the way around it. I don't think that's gonna make a better piece of architecture. It's a larger building, it's broken up, it's, as far as I'm concerned, its proportions and its scale and its color and its texture, I think they're very good, but that's a biased opinion by the creator.
I would second that, actually. Like, I like that the front facade has the brick cladding and stuff like that. The interior parts of it where you have like, I don't wanna say cheaper, but different materials, right? For like that center piece right there, stuff like that. That allows them to have their cost savings, whatever. I can see if that was the only facade that the building had, that, it would seem kind of bland. I think this marries kind of the cultural heritage with the cost savings and everything, and it is in that little wrapped around area, so you don't really see a lot of people driving by are not going to see that basically ever. Having that wrap around would just be undue stress and maybe make it worse because, like you say, you don't have that contrast. I think it's all pretty much like spot on. Like even the back area where you do have those few patios, they like emulated the brick again, just so that you have that consistency from the street. So I think it's pretty well thought out design, and I'm pretty happy with.
And also, I think, if we're looking down the road, future designs and future building and everything like that, the onus for making it more interesting looking is on the architect, not the builder, okay? So that's where the major cost is gonna be, is, an extra 200 hours or whatever, that goes into the initial design. But, well, basic material costs and construction costs right now,
Very high.
they're very high, and they're probably not a heck of a lot different, whether you go with, like I've said, a box and a box and a box, or whether you try and tweak it a little bit and,
I personally like the contrast.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, I think it's very eye-catching, and it's, I think it's done very well.
It breaks up the scale of the building, number one, but it also, by incorporating clapboard, it does give it, that kind of a colonial texture that we've used on a lot of our buildings on Main Street.
What is what's this gonna look like in 10 or 15 years, Kevin?
Personally, I think this is gonna look good. The quality of construction has a lot to do with how these things look, the quality of the materials. we're more than likely going to build it. The quality that we build to is very good quality. Our buildings look good long after, most buildings don't.
The Newtown Savings Bank is a good, the new Newtown Savings, you guys did that,
Yeah,
right?
down
Yeah.
by the green.
Down by
The
the
Southbury Green.
Yep.
That's 30 years old.
Mhm.
And a lot of the same materials.
So long as the landlords take care of everything.
It all,
And-
and we've
and it's
said
not-
that in the past, it all depends on who's maintaining the projects.
Yeah.
You can build a beautiful home and 10 years later,
Yep.
Everybody's complaining on the street.
Kevin, Deandra, Nevin, where are I'm sorry, I don't have the plans in front of me. Where are the mechanicals planned on being staged? Are those going roof or ground?
They're basically through-the-wall units in each of the apartments, with the vent being on the patio and the unit within the apartment. So the mechanicals for the retail on the bottom, the 8,500 square feet, there'll be a couple units on the roof, probably behind these gables. They're not very big because the spaces are not very big. The units that go on the roof are maybe this big.
And they're not gonna be able to be seen.
They're behind the gables, right?
Yeah.
Just like mini splits, essentially?
Well, in all, the 34 units are taken care of basically through wall mini splits. The units on the downstairs here will have a rooftop compressor and an in-the-unit air handling unit. So the air handling, or the compressor on the roof is, you literally, two guys pick it up and throw it in a pickup.
Just for the record, Mr. Bennett is gesturing a structure about 4 by 4.
Yeah. For the record. Because we need to be precise.
Let's try.
Any rooftop units, pardon me, just to be sure, any rooftop units are generally going to be not visible.
Correct. There'll more than likely be like 4 retail units downstairs. If you put 2 behind each gable, again, those gables are 28 feet wide. 2 4-foot units are not going to be seen.
That's all we've got for now. So thank you, Mr. Bennett. As I indicated, I think it best to leave the public hearing open on these detailed plans to our next meeting.
Okay.
We've got the other part of it done in a little over a week. I think it's certainly fair to give us a chance to chew on it a little bit. Thank you.
So a motion to extend the public hearing.
All right, so do I hear a motion to extend the public hearing?
Motion to extend public hearing.
Got a second? Anyone going to second that motion?
We did, Frank did.
Frank did, okay, I didn't hear. All right, going to vote on that? All those in favor of extending the public hearing to the next regular meeting? Aye. Any against?
I'm kind of against
I am
it, too. I don't
too.
think, I don't think there's anything that's gonna really change between now and then.
I agree. I don't think anything's gonna change.
Wait,
Yeah, I'm doesn't wanna extend, I'm a don't wanna extend.
wait, can I ask for,
We just figure out, so we can
I'm-
maybe call a different vote.
I'm against as well.
Okay.
But can I ask, how long has the public hearing been open technically for this?
Half a month.
9
Not
days.
even-
9 days.
Not even an entire month.
Okay, so I think we have to recognize too that this is also a big change for the town, and the town, wish I didn't say I was against it first, because now I'm thinking the town residents should have at least 30 days
Of course.
to voice a
The
concern.
town has had
That's my thinking.
on gobs of time.
But we've only had the public hearing open for 9 days.
How many public hearings have we had?
They withdrew their application. Now, this is the application they're presenting and going forward with. It's been open for 9
And-
days.
And as much as I'd
So
say,
we got through the first chunk of it in 9 days. And I'm suggesting that it's more logical to give it a full 30 days so that when someone comes around and says, hey, how come they're digging up Main Street and nobody told me? That we say, no, this hearing was open for 30 days.
so as I think about this, this is a big change, and I think Bennett, everybody here has done a phenomenal job in terms of answering our questions, presenting these plans. I'm very happy with what I've seen, but again, it is a big change for the town. I think it's worth giving residents an opportunity to voice any concerns or even favorable opinions if they have them before we make this big change that may set a precedent for all of Main Street.
I think he's right.
So what you're saying is that at our next meeting, we can close the public hearing and then vote?
That'd be 30 days. So we remotion?
There's still a second on the table.
Does that leave it open for just the vote on this particular property or the changes to the section 12 as well? Or are we leaving both open?
Just this. Yep.
So again, there's a second on the motion to extend the public hearing for the detailed plans.
So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those against?
I guess, but like,
I'm
I
against.
understand
I'm
the
against.
point. It feels
Yeah.
like
I
it's been
understand.
so many months to us because we've looked at this so many
Yeah.
times, but
Yeah.
the 9 days does seem shorter than I thought it was.
Okay.
I'm happy to leave it open.
yeah, we can leave it open.
All right, so are there any against leaving the public hearing open to the next regular meeting? All right, hearing no objections. All right, so that public hearing stays open for another 2 or 3 weeks, and we'll take it up at the next regular meeting with the expectation of voting and having a resolution. The next bit of business we have is the comprehensive zoning regulation rewrite. I see we have some people here for that, so. Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Bennett.
Dee, you'll run our presentation for us? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan.
Hey, hi, everyone. Nice to see you all again. We're going to continue this great conversation and talk about some site development standards. I think if you could, next slide, please. So the purpose of tonight is we are getting into migrating all of your materials. We are getting to detailed materials that we want some guidance from you all on, your experience with the regulations, where you'd like the direction of it to go. And the mindset there is in 5 weeks or so, we have a session with some stakeholders that regularly use these regulations, and they will give us guidance on these same topics. We want to make sure that we're going into that meeting, understanding your preferences, the direction you'd like to go into, so that that can inform those conversations as well. So the topics we're looking at right now tonight are parking, stormwater and erosion control, lighting, signage, and landscaping. So we have some other slides that we'll work through, and they just kind of conversation starters. It lays out our minimum recommendations and a couple other considerations that we want to go through with you all. We can see where the conversation takes us on each of those. It's just going to assist us in the next phase of the project here. At the end of the night, we'll talk about middle housing and Public Act 25-1, which is a bit of a separate situation, but we want to get that in front of you and talk about that. I think it relates well to the hearings you've had tonight and a good extension of that. So we will wrap up with that. Any questions on that initially? Okay. So the first item we'll talk about is parking. So based on our original baseline review of the regulations, We know we need to align your regulations with a couple public acts. The first one is about electrical vehicle charging infrastructure. So there are minimum requirements of, a development of a certain size just needs to be prepared to put that in if it's decided on. And there are some adjustments based on recent legislation as well for minimum and maximums that are allowed to be regulated for residential developments. So those are two adjustments we would make right off the bat. We also had the note of modifying minimums and maximums in general. Our minimum recommendation is to realign your standards with the industry standards from ITE. They outline the anticipated ratios that are needed for a variety of uses. We can use that to update your regulations. There's also, you have some unique approving procedures for parking modifications, so we also want to make sure we streamline that. Those are our minimum recommendations. We also will just clean up the tables that are in your code and use some graphics to depict dimensions and standards that are being expressed.
So ITE, International Traffic Engineers, or something like that? Institute
Yeah, there we go.
Transportation Engineering.
Ah, thank you.
They're
So
the
close.
body that do studies.
They're the governing body.
Yeah, their manual's about that big.
Okay, thank you.
Are the parking spots a standard one size fits all?
No. You can have, the depth of the parking space is a function of how much backup space you have. And so when you're looking at a parking lot, you should be looking at the drive-through aisle, the stall, and then accompanying stall as well. And so that's the dimension that changes. 9 foot is acceptable width. If you have an area on a large parking lot with compact spaces, you could change that a little bit. I don't recommend that because those spaces often become unusable or improperly used. I'm one of the people with a small car, and I used to have a small car. So the answer is that we try to standardize in your regulation what those ratios are. Now, the ITE does studies, they're updating their stuff on analysis by use, and that determines the number of spaces. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago at the hearing on adopting the modifications of Section 12. What we're talking about here is to incorporate those standards or reference to those standards so that when someone comes to you, they say, you're overparked, and here's the standard we think you should be using. So we want to be able to give you that flexibility and tie it back to a technical reference, which, by the way, changes. So you heard, I think it was the traffic engineer here earlier, talked about changes in how people shop in retail. Right now, you have a 6.6 spaces per thousand. I think it's 1 per 150, so that works out to be 6.6 per thousand. That is very high, and it may be used at Southbury Plaza at Christmas time, but even those are coming down in numbers. So we want to begin to think about what the ratios should be, and that's what we're talking about here. There is another factor in larger developments, and you have some properties that could be developed significantly in town, and you want to go to time of day issues in shared parking, particularly in mixed-use development. Because in a mixed-use development, the residential component, they park here and go to work. And so if you had a retail and the time of day of that activity is this time, and so you can have overlapping parking that you should be considering. You don't allow that now, but we want you to be able to think about that contemporary method of evaluating parking. Now, there's another component in here, and you're going to see reference, and Taylor talked about PA 25-1. That just came out in November. All right? And that's related to housing. And there are in that law, there are changes in what you can allow and the minimum. There are some areas where you cannot have a minimum parking standard when you have I think 16 units? If you have fewer than 16 dwelling units, you can't compel them to have an unusual ratio. And so we want to work through that with you. But PA 25-1 is 110 pages. And about 50 of those pages have nothing to do with planning and zoning. They have fair rent and other sorts of things. But there are components of that we're going to be getting into with you, and we have to, at the end, we'll get into it a little bit more procedurally, because there's a change that needs to come up by July 1st, and we're not going to be, so we'll talk about that. So your question is, the standards for parking, the width is generally 9 foot. Some people do 10, say for handicap, where you have 12-footers. But the depth of the stall if you have 18 foot for the stall, you really need to have a 22-foot drive aisle. If you have a 20-foot stall, you can go to a narrower drive
The
aisle.
only reason I'm saying something is, this community, there's still a lot of trucks, large SUVs,
Yep.
and some of the parking lots, if you do have a truck, it's very difficult to back out.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we're accommodating.
I think there's another component of that with those trucks, and that's the overhang. And when you have walks in front of them, a narrow walkway becomes unfunctional because of the overhang of if somebody's backing in, a lot of these, the SUVs, they back up, they've got a trailer hitch. I think that's a good point. So we have to think about that. So we're talking parking in dimension and parking in ratios.
Another question, when you're talking about the ratios, when you're talking about a multiple use and you have apartments, and you also have commercial space around them, is the fact that you can, I don't know if the landlord can do that, the town, whatever, to designate
Yep.
tenants only.
Yes.
All right.
You gotta be careful on how you can enforce that. But that can be done.
Yeah, how does that equation fit into, how does doing that fit into the equation?
The number, that's where the shared parking question comes in, I think.
Yeah, that's one of my references.
Yeah, so the shared parking, not sharing between two businesses, but sharing for the uses on the property.
Yes.
You go through the ITE, and they have some ratios,
Yeah.
knowing how many people go and,
There's only half the people on the planet paying attention to handicap parking, right, and reserve parking, whatever, you know.
So that's where we're talking about updating the ratio to ITE, making them, ITEs downgraded them. I think you have, again, 6.6 for offices, and that's really high. And typically, an office is about 4 per thousand. And if it's a larger building, it may come down to 3 per thousand. And so those are the things that we want to, you don't want to be overparked for a couple of reasons, because that generates runoff, and that runoff goes into the Pomperaug River. And so we want to be looking at that as well. If you're in agreement that you want to look at them.
Okay. So the proposals that you're talking about for ITE, I'm looking at section 9 of our regulation, right, that you put in front of us. This is what exists currently, correct? In what was provided to us? Section.
They didn't provide this.
This is just.
Jordan.
Jordan just provided this? Okay, so I guess my question is, so it says right here that the average width of our parking lot spots are allowable at 9 feet or 8 feet, depending on the length, 18 and 15. So like, what are you actually proposing the change be, right? So if it's not gonna be, like, what is the language change is what I'm trying to get at. So there are already regulations on the turning, there's already regulations on the backup, the location. So like, what are the specifics of what we're trying to update? Are we just, do you want us to go to these standards and just go, yes, we agree with them, or?
We will give you definite standards, but we want to understand tonight that move off what you now have into more contemporary standards. We will then give you our recommendation. If you're in agreement that you want to shift, that's what we're asking. Are you
Okay.
in agreement that you want to shift away from what you now have and address these multi-uses, providing the opportunity for greater flexibility? The alternative is to say, no, we don't want to make any changes. We're not offering those changes here tonight. We're looking for guidance that you are interested in making changes. I don't know. Does that work?
I just find it hard to like opine without, like, right now it says for dwellings, 1 to 2 unit dwellings, there's 2 spaces each. So are you saying we go to 1 space each? Like, what is the?
Well, no, there are, that's a statutory change.
So the residential component of this is a little unique. The update that we need to incorporate is that if a development comes in under 16 units, you are not permitted to require any certain amount of parking spaces. They will still provide parking, most likely, because that is a marketing situation for themselves. Versus if you have a development come in above 16 units, you are only allowed to require 1 parking space for a 1-bedroom unit or 2 spaces for anything larger than 1 bedroom.
So you're saying bring our town regulations in line with what this new requirement? Okay, residential aside, there is a list here of 12 different types of parking ratios, whether it's retail, churches, motor vehicle service stations. So are we, I guess my preference would be like, here's what it says now, here's what we'd like it to say. Are you okay moving forward with that? Like, I don't, the conceptual, like, we'd like to change it to be more, obviously we want to be compliant with the federal regulations or the larger state regulations, but outside of that,
Generally speaking, we want to reduce the ratios to be more proportionate to the, more appropriate for the uses.
it's just really
And
vague.
it's all over the place, you know,
Yeah.
so I don't know what we call for
Okay.
churches at the moment. I don't know what we'll call. All I know is retail, right now, your retail and office are high. We want, I think, we want to recommend to you to bring those down. You are going to be challenged, as you were tonight, with the mixed use. You don't have that mixed use provision. You have it through the PDD, but you don't have it on other types of non-residential uses. So rather than suggesting someone have a variance, which is not good, we want to give you that flexibility by tying it into the ITE. And ITE, you know, there are formulas all over the place in that.
Is the goal just to point to the ITE going forward, or to completely adopt that and put the language into our regulations?
I need to make a note right now. Board of Selectmen has a meeting after this, and we do need to speed this up.
Sorry.
We need to be out of here in a half an hour. We want to respect the applicant's time. This was the decided consultant to address the zoning regulation rewrite. I would advise commissioners take time to review the regulations if they are new to this, but for the most part, this is the purpose of SLR consulting the town, because we have a lot of inconsistencies and a lot of issues, and they haven't been updated since the 70s, and we need to come into the current timeline. So if there's any other questions, by all means, address them, but we do need to speed this up a bit.
Sorry, we could talk.
No problem, go ahead.
I think we have a couple routes towards the flexibility here. I think we will rely on ITE and our experience with reducing these, and we will, take the opportunity to consider other options as well, so deferment and needs assessments that would allow an applicant to come in and say, based on the surrounding situation of our property, we propose these numbers. Is that acceptable to you? So there's a couple avenues there. If you are all comfortable with that update, we will go forward with building those in for your review.
Yep,
Make sense?
thanks.
Okay. We can go to the next one. So stormwater and erosion control. The key item here that we are recommending is, I believe both of the regulations right now reference other ordinances with the town. We are recommending that we reference state manuals instead, which are regularly updated. They were very recently updated, and your current ordinances themselves do not utilize those regulations. So this ties you directly into what the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection is requesting or requiring, and it will be phrased in a way that when they do amend in 5 years or whenever that may be, you are still in compliance with that latest version. This is also our opportunity to incorporate low-impact development standards into all of your developments.
And they're using, they've made out detention and the like, which is all good. And we want to make sure that that is done. And as Jordan said, your regulations are old and we need to update those. The part of this on properties that are facing
I think that's a great idea if you're asking for our opinion. Is there a reason why we wouldn't consider?
You're gonna come up with all these suggestions and then let us approve. Of course. So
Right.
we would probably wanna look at all your recommendations. And then we would approve those.
That would be too cumbersome for you to review.
Okay, all
We're
right.
doing this piecemeal, and
Okay.
that's why they're doing this. We also, means if we go into that stakeholder meeting and we're eliciting all this feedback, and they are, then we just wasted a whole bunch of time in the stakeholder meeting, where guys aren't reading anything substantive, but you have to give feedback as to
erosion sedimentation control, you have a separate ordinance, but yet, and this is a legal question that your town Board of Selectmen and you would be to leave them in zoning, because that's where the action is.
Yeah, the next one. Next one is lighting. We have touched on this one before.
Right, yeah.
You're electrical engineer.
So we're definitely gonna look at those.
Yes.
Maybe.
Now is dark skies. It's just incredibly detailed. There are that, and if there are any specific components of your current lighting standards that you do feel are
A quick question on that. So I know like we have pretty stringent, I'm kind of free with us like trashing all of it and coming up with something brand new. But the one thing I think that is really important that I think the thought behind all of it was just like, you know, I guess would be like shining into people's buildings. You know?
Interesting dark skies model. You don't need them. Dim them down, or lights when they're not in use can be taken down to a lower foot candle.
And we're also going to clarify some information of that as well. And the Connecticut Lights Out model ordinance includes.
I feel a bigger topic of conversation.
Okay.
This line, so we may want to more hyper-focus on the athletic lighting, because that's been a point of contention.
Signage is the next one. We've heard this one's going to come up with the stakeholders, so we want to, good signage from town so that people can put an regulating. One of the hot topics that has come up in historic districts are generally residentially zoned situations. It's that affects, interested in allowing that flexibility, giving them.
Would the historic district trump us, like when it comes to signage, like for size of the signs and stuff? Because I know in other factors, they're very strict about what you can do to your home and.
The Historic District Commission can regulate signs, they do, but if you, right now, I think in some of these, we're talking 2 square feet. I mean, 1 by 2 is infinitesimally small. How do you even see that, and why have it? So I think if you will say, then the applicant could of that sign.
It's not so much in the South Britain Historic District, but not a cheap endeavor, and often still allow people to use those historic structures, maintain them, and use evergreen. Yep.
What's the name of it?
Evergreen.
Evergreen, yeah.
Yeah. Can you see those signs?
You'd be hard pressed to know it's an Airbnb, because it,
That's right.
yeah.
And the historic requirements are actually larger than those of what we have in our zoning regulations.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, okay.
So that's a
I
great
think
chance
that's
for us to align that and make sure it's standard across, so you're.
So I think everybody's in support of.
In general, our sign, outside of, so the home-based business signage is the one that we're now that you don't think are suitable, right, within the town.
Illumination types
Yeah,
of.
what I was gonna bring up as well. You know,
You don't need to light up the entire building, the bleed that they produce. I don't, that's the Ron.
We accommodate all that right now, it's very complicated.
Yeah.
So frankly, it's more enforceable as well.
There you go.
That's, yeah.
So on signage, my assumption here is that every town has a very different culture in terms of, maybe, is this something that like the commission can have a conversation on in terms of like what?
That tonight, but let's, when we get to signs, before we embark on it, all right, we're listening, but the commission has their own thoughts.
And help us inform those meetings, if you've got your free time to, review your signage regs.
I hate signs.
Yep.
You know where you are.
No question.
Is to codify the streetscape standards into the zone. A little bit more about what you're expecting from that codification.
No, I think it goes to that scenario where you have ordinances overlapping with zoning. And
It's actually not, and I just learned this today, because you're 100% right. I actually learned that there is no streetscape ordinance.
But you have a streetscape committee.
We have a plan and a subcommittee, no factual ordinance. It's been talked about as if it is an ordinance. It's been referred to as an ordinance. As of right now, it is not an enforceable document either under our charter or code of ordinances or our regulations.
I know a couple months ago, the committee was doing some work updating. Has that been completed?
Yeah,
Okay.
minorly, yeah.
So if we get a copy of that, why don't we try to take from that and codify what's important to zoning from that document?
Okay.
And incorporate it. Because I know in that document, there's a tree warden doing, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff. that
Right.
Has nothing to do with zoning. But if we can take that and incorporate the pertinent parts of that into the zoning code, that will be a good thing.
Not a problem. I'll make sure I get it to you guys.
I believe that has a limited scope as to where it applies. I think it is mostly Main Street. So as we work through that, and as you spend some time thinking about your regulations, think about if there are other places in the community where that standard is looking to be branched out to. Because if we're pulling this into the zoning right now, we have the opportunity to require this for certain types of development, certain areas, certain zones. So if there's ways you want to branch that out, that is additional feedback we'd love to hear and consider in the next step.
Thank you.
Let's go to the final.
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
Okay, this last one is about the recent legislation change. So, I think we'll start with, we have a handful of areas where we know we need to update. So this is about middle housing. These are your 2 to 9 unit structures. Based on new legislation, any commercial or mixed-use district must allow this type of development on July 1. You are allowed to set site standards for that development. You cannot hold a public hearing, so this cannot be a special permit application. You lay out the standards that you expect, and if they meet that, they can get their approval.
We want to be careful with that, though.
We certainly do, and this is unfortunately a topic that every single town in the state is really grappling with right now. Some people are looking at it at a regional level. We have the opportunity right now to talk about this and figure out a route forward for you.
Here's a dilemma. This law has to be done, the changes by law, or by statute, have to be done by July 1st.
Yeah, those things get extended.
Okay.
It's a political,
We thought that the legislature intended, in this current session, intended to extend everything by about 6 months. We heard to the contrary, not from a necessarily reliable source, knowledgeable, that isn't going to happen.
yet.
All right, so, what I'm taking from that is, let's keep working diligently and not separate it out on its own thing.
No, of course we want to comply with state statutes, of course.
So we're gonna keep this going, and include it in the normal adoption of these changes.
Yeah, but I mean, this is, of course, another example of the legislature, and let's say it in public, it's a one-size-fits-all kind of thing, and we're a small town with very particular needs, and, we're gonna have to cope with it as best we can.
This component might be a pain because it's short, very short term. The other components of that bill,
Is that a comment?
We, as planners, are struggling with how that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
You know, the rest of that particular, I'm not opposed, I'm not suggesting that there's ill intent. I'm suggesting that the people who wrote it don't understand local planning and zoning and how to implement it.
No.
What?
Do you have a pulse on what other towns are doing enough that like you could bring things forward? Like, oh, we see that, I don't know, Stratford, Avon, or like how they're implementing this, like, so we could piggyback off of that. Do you have a pulse on what others are doing?
Right now, you're ahead of everybody else,
Oh,
just because you're discussing it.
Okay.
It's just coincidental.
I don't want to set the standard, I think is where I'm at.
That we're rewriting right now. It's coincidental that we're rewriting and this comes down.
Yes.
What regulation is this?
For us.
So, in your instance, it's gonna be done, the integration is gonna be seamless. Other towns, it's gonna be sort of plucked out and manipulated. It's tough.
Yeah.
So how does this fit in with the zoning we kind of have right now, where we have like building height restrictions of 40 feet, right? Or 40 feet.
Whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Like, if they have like, you know, an 8-unit housing development, right? And it's 3 stories and that violates the 40-foot rule.
Yep.
Then it just would get approved.
The state supersedes
it?
our zoning?
We are going,
don't think so.
we could write this in such a way to allow, well, 3-story floor plate would be 36 feet. So that will work. But other sorts of things, right now, you have 2-story residential, right? I'm thinking off the top of my head. So let's walk through a quick scenario. Here on Main Street, you've got business zones. So under, most of it's business. So you would have to allow this type of housing. And you're just allowed some mixed use, which is okay. We'd have to make provisions for that elsewhere, so that's some modification. The height and setback standards we can work with, so it would comply with the statute, so you wouldn't be overridden with that. What other issues were we talking about? The density is my concern. The density issues in not necessarily your business zones on Main Street, but business zones in Southwick, for example, where that's not sand and gravel, that's rock. How do you get the densities that they're talking about down there? I don't know that answer. And we're gonna struggle with that. I don't know it now, you know, but
Yeah. I think the important thing is there are minimums that we will absolutely be pushing forward. We don't have to think about it. We will be adopting the definition. We will be making sure that this is permitted where it needs to be permitted. We will make sure it's approved in the ways that it needs to be approved. The standards are your opportunity to craft this with the guardrails that you want. So when somebody comes in and says, this public act lets me make this development in this location, but here are the standards that the town has put together that I need to meet, and now I can do it. So that is something over the next couple of months that this commission should really consider what you're comfortable with. You can take existing standards that you've used for, I don't know, 2-family developments or multifamily developments that have worked, and we can massage that into what would work for this situation. But it's not a clear-cut answer right off the bat. It's gonna take some time for you all to think about that and develop what that looks like. There's some other considerations as well. You can allow this in residential districts. I think at this point, we would probably recommend we focus on what's required of the commercial and the mixed-use districts. A part of that is how we define districts. Yours are pretty clearly delineated, so I'm not anticipating much of an issue there, but that's just something to be aware of. At the state level, there's some discrepancies between what is a mixed-use district. Does that mean commercial and industrial, or just commercial and residential? We're taking the opportunity right now to define your districts as commercial and/or mixed use.
and not consider an industrial area commercial, even though it's
Yes.
commercial activity. In our judgment, we're talking about retail office areas, and that are mixed uses that are possible. Your corporate office, which is really office, we would not consider that. We would not consider that. Some lawyer might, but we're not gonna tell you that. We're gonna try to push
What is farmland considered right now? Is it industrials or
No.
residential? Okay.
Falls under the residential.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so we've kind of gone through a lot. I think we've got some direction. We understand you guys are flexible and are willing to hear our recommendations. So we will proceed with that, and we will bring that to the stakeholder meetings as well. I think the homework to think about until the next time that we see you, which will probably be 6 weeks or so, would be to think about the signage that you're interested in seeing in town, if there's any adjustments there. If there should be any expansion of where landscaping or streetscaping is required, and the idea of this middle housing situation, what might you be comfortable with for building standards for that type of development? With the mindset of we're focusing on the commercial districts. What would you allow on Main Street? Or what would you be comfortable with on Main Street?
Thank you, Taylor.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you both very much. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I motion.
Are there any opposed to adjourning? So, before we break up, Jordan has supplied current copies of the zoning regulations. If you haven't, familiarized yourself with those, read those, gotten comfortable with them, you should do that. Because going forward, we, obviously are going to be